consecutive terms in another community years ago. And so there are situations where everyone sitting here who becomes a councillor may end up in a closed meeting, whether they like it or not. Because especially when it comes to staff, I could use an example so that you understand it really well. Let's say your city manager has to be fired. You're not going to say that in front of the whole city. You're going to discuss it in a meeting, and you're going to talk about personal things about that person that would lead to you having to dismiss that person. So those are the kind of things under the charter that go into what's called an in-camera meeting. So I do understand how they work. Is that you have to make sure that you're very careful that other things never get into them. And you have to just rely that that's left up to the professionals. Thank you.
Kevin McCauley.
Well, I think it's a lot of times it's perception that's the problem. It's the perception that there's something untoward going behind the doors, going on behind the closed doors. So I don't know if there's a possibility of when the closed door meetings are announced or publicized on the website that they can have a disclaimer, closed door meeting determined by the clerk and who authorized who, who determined who the meeting was set up by. So that it doesn't appear that council has made that decision. Whether that would put anybody's mind at ease or not, I do understand from some of my negotiation days back in the Firefighters Association, there are times when it needs to be worked out behind closed doors before it's made public. It's a challenge. I can understand where people, when you don't know what's going on, it leaves a void which you tend to fill, and sometimes that's filled with negative thoughts. So hopefully there's a way that it can be presented in a way to the public that gives them more comfort that the closed door meetings are necessary.
Councillor Lisa Murin.
Thank you. As far as the process for Delbrook, I think council was just of the position that we weren't ready to move forward on any decision with Delbrook. You know, it's not that a public process wasn't going to happen, it just was, it was not happening at that time. Griffin was, we were needing to tear down Griffin and we were needing to replace it. There was a pool in it for many, many years and the building was beginning to rot and we had to tear it down. So that was where we were concentrating our efforts. And there will always be, no matter what happens on Delbrook, there will be an extensive process. Mr. Bond talked about the public hearing process. It's a legislative requirement. It's a quasi-judicial process that we are required by legislation to hold. And if there was any change in the land use on that site, there would be an extensive process. I've been re-elected 6 times, and I think I can say that I was re-elected because people trust me. And I've always been upfront with the community, and I've always been very honest with the community. And if I thought for 1 minute that anything was happening behind a closed door that wasn't allowed to happen under legislation, I would let you know.
Hazen Colbert.
First of all, I want to make it clear that I have never said that a member of council has attended a closed-door meeting with the developer. Even though some closed-door meetings might be necessary, the decisions from those meetings can be published. That's exactly what the community charter says. I also want to point out that the clerk is not some sort of nebulous position over there. The clerk reports to council on these matters. There's a serious problem having Mayor Richard Walton address us tonight on the subject of closed meetings. Not only because he chairs the closed meetings in the district, but because he now sits on the TransLink board, which I can tell you, having reviewed their minutes, has their share of closed special meetings. And how much does Mayor Walton get paid for those meetings? I bet no one's told you this. $1,000 to $200 per meeting. For that much money, I gotta tell you, I'd be having a whole lot of closed-door special meetings. I'd find a reason to do it in any way, shape, or form. That's why we need to stop it.
Is being impugned, and I'm going to ask if I could. If you're going to let my character be impugned and not allow me to defend myself in a public meeting, I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave.
Do you sit on the board of TransLink?
Absolutely, I do.
Do you get paid $1,200 per meeting?
Yeah, well,
That's Amelia Hill.
Thank you.
Oh, ready. Okay, well, I hope we can all calm down a bit and take a deep breath. There are times for closed door meetings behind camera, and they're required at some times. However, I hope that I can make you a little more comfortable by guaranteeing I always intend to question why these need to happen. I will always ask, and I will always find out, because we do need to ensure that we do take the vote that my fellow hopefuls are talking about. We do need to make sure that if it's not necessary, that we make sure you can be there, you can hear what's wrong. And as far as on consultation, it's up to your council to listen to you. And that's why I really want to run. I hope to be as approachable as possible, and I want to hear what you want. I want to hear what concerns you, and I want to act for you. Thank you.
Len Laycock.
Well, you know, I think in a democracy, citizens must remain alert. And hearing some of the answers, I'm hearing, don't worry, it's all for good reasons, go back to sleep. There are, of course, occasions where discretion in private meetings are necessary, there's no doubt. It's not the clerk's fault, because the clerk advises council, council makes the call. So there will be occasions where there has to be private meetings. But please, let's make them few and far between, and let's have the public's business conducted in public. And, you know, as I was attacked rather viciously earlier, you know, when people have relationships with developers, and when they sit and they make judgments for the public, between the public sometimes and a developer, and they've taken money from one side, we have to be concerned about that. And so, you know, just remember, be vigilant about democracy, and let's have some change.
Jim Hansen.
Well, the whole issue of closed-door meetings is essentially a legal question. There is legislation that governs the conduct of the clerk and the conduct of the council in relation to whether a meeting should be open or should be closed. It's a legal question that has to be answered fairly. It would be improper to hold a meeting that should be open in a closed setting, but it would also be just as improper to hold a meeting which by legislation should be closed in an open setting. That's the legal reality. As a matter of politics, everyone at this table, I believe, favors openness, favors transparency, and you have my word that both as a lawyer looking at the issue of whether the meeting should be closed or open, and as a representative in the community, if there's a question, we will resolve that question in favor of openness. Thank you very much.
Wayne Hampton.
First of all, I don't see any hidden conspiracies in any of these meetings, and most of the incumbents, including the mayor, I consider friends. We don't agree on everything, but I see no conspiracy. Let's get back to the real intent, I think, of the question. And the real intent, I think, was a couple of years ago, a signal was sent, or forget before. The association, the neighborhood feels like it wasn't listened to. And I can tell you, and I can give you my word, that there's not enough time. There will be no restrictions. And as we talk about the legal format of a public hearing, there's lots of ways that we can bring the community together to talk about visions, to engage the community, and then go into a public hearing. So you have my word that I'll listen and I'll fight to make sure that everybody is heard.
Linda Findlay.
Pretty heated. I agree, well spoken, Jim, the way that you had handled that and the way you put it forward. I also been to my incumbents that are already here, and I do trust what they do, and the clerk and the people that work at the district hall. I'm sure that everybody is guided by rules and regulations and legislation, and that they incorporate them properly. But when I did read the question from the district, or the Delbrook Community Association, I went, what's this about? So I pulled out the community charter, and I actually looked about open and closed meetings. And everything that our the incumbent councillors have said is true. There are certain reasons why. It's not a long document, it's only, and when Deb came up and named all the sections, I went, take the wind out of my sails, because I have them all here. But it is through 90 with section 1, A through O, all that kind of stuff. But the bottom part that struck me as interesting was the requirements before a meeting is closed, section 92. Before holding a meeting or part of a meeting that is to be closed to the public, a council must state by resolution passed in a public meeting, A, the fact that the meeting or part of it is to be closed, and the basis under the application, subsection to section 90, which was the first part, on which the meeting or part of it is to be closed. So it is part of public record that it's going to be closed, and they give us a reason. And I've been going through all the agendas and all of the open council meetings, and they are there when there's going to be a closed meeting. So I don't think there's anything nefarious happening here.
Matthew Hall.
I'm not going to flog the dead horse on the in-camera meetings, so I want to get back to what we were talking about before. It's public engagement, and it seems like at a certain point in history, the community here has felt like it has not been listened to. And I want to outline some goals for success on what public engagement should feel like, and what it should feel like for you, because it's your voice that we're listening to. You need to feel empowered, that you're involved in the process, the decision-making process, and you need to have a sense of ownership over any of these applications that come forth, whether development or public land assembly, disposal, or otherwise. Like I said before, we need to reach out from this traditional kind of public meeting format. You know, it is legislated that we do need to have this, but you know, how many people here are under the age of 30? Okay, great. You know, okay. So there's other tools that we have. We've got social media. We've got other tools to manage people's time and get more involvement from people. And I consider it a success, this public engagement process, where we're able to educate people about the project so that people can understand all the options, not just the benefits, but what might happen if we don't do the project as well. So right across the board. Thank you.
Glenn McKenzie, and as a public school teacher for 20 years, I can assure you that I have plenty of experience with the public sharing of knowledge, and that is what I stand for in principle. And I'm not afraid of it, and I will carry that right through with you to council. In the matter of the process of private meetings, there need to be a resolution, as was mentioned before, and that must be public with a reason for it. And then any business that is off from that resolution or outside of that resolution will immediately cause the cessation or end of the meeting. In other words, there is legislation and there's protection there. So, but mostly what I'm asking you is to look at my record. I have a record of trust, public trust, 20 years of public education, and I'm asking you to trust me and to vote for me on November 15th. Glenn McKenzie, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen and candidates, I'm just wondering for this third question, it is a short question, I don't think it's a long answer, but I'm wondering if we can just change up the energy pattern here in the speaking order, with your permission. You mind if we go back the reverse way, so we'll be, is that fine with everybody? Okay, the third question then is, in 2013, District Council reduced the amount collected through development cost charges allocated to parks to the point where it's the lowest in the Lower Mainland. The Delbrook community has, on a number of occasions, unsuccessfully sought an allocation of family-oriented park space. Will you commit to an effort to create a neighborhood park oriented for families and neighbors for the Delbrook community? If so, how would you fund it? Glenn McKenzie.
Well, yes, I just attended a very great presentation from the administrative officers of the district, the district chief financial officer, who stated that it is the goal of the district, the administration of the district, to collect higher development surcharges in order to pay for infrastructure. In other words, to to kind of balance our needs into the future, rather than having all of the costs of infrastructure mount and then come upon us all at once later. So it's this program of asset management. And I credit the council and the mayor for managing this and sticking to it. It's difficult to keep that discipline. But as far as a park in Delbrook, in principle, I support it. I don't know about the costs, and I don't know about the availability of funds through development surcharges for that purpose. You know, I'm not on council yet, but in principle, the cause is good. The park is needed. It's important to have a park and public space in our communities.
Matthew Bone.
The neighborhood park in Delbrook has been identified for a long time. It's in the open space and park strategic plan, and it's a long overdue addition for the community here. Again, I think it goes back to that public process that we've been talking about, and it's not really how we're gonna tell you how to pay for it. It's really how you want to pay for it, and that's part of the public process. Is that if this park is needed, there's a lot of options out there. It could be development cost charges. It could be, there's an option, here we're talking about Delbrook Public Assembly lands. Is a park something that you're willing to trade for a portion of those lands? This is a decision that we need to discuss, and it needs to go through that rigorous process, because there are competing funding demands across the district for all types of infrastructure. So really, it comes back to you and us listening to what you want and how you want to pay for it.
Linda Findlay?
Well, Matthew just took the words right out of my mouth. So, yes, absolutely. I agree with him. It's a matter of what you guys want, how you can help us pay for it, how we can help you pay for it, and what you really need. I think it's probably going to end up being part of the Delbrook Community Center, that we incorporate part of the park in there. But really, it comes from you. We need to hear from you. What is it you want? And then we can tell you, well, yes, it's available. We can help you with that, or we're going to have to do something collaboratively, either through development costs or, community participation.
Wayne Hunter.
It's not unusual that we all want some significant green space in our neighborhood. But I think this specific improvement is just going to be one component of the overall redevelopment in this neighborhood. And I think this is going to be part of the, I guess sometimes it's often referred to as the visioning process. You know, that time and those meetings and those engagements prior to that formal public hearing. I think you want to press council to organize it as soon as possible, so that we get that vision and amend that vision, and to engage everybody as much as we can in terms of funding. Well, three sources: the value of the asset that we currently own in your neighborhood; two, the development cost charges that have been referred to, and the public amenity funds. These are some of the monies that we used out in the parkade area. We use those public amenity funds, which each developer has to pay into. So, the park, thank you.
Sorry, he's out of noises.
Jim Hansen.
Certainly, my belief is parks are a good thing. Parks restore communities. Parks give people of different walks of life, different positions in society, an opportunity to enjoy and participate and mix and mingle, and that's all positive. So as a matter of philosophy, I will be a voice for parks. I also am sympathetic to the idea that development cost charges perhaps should be raised. But I don't want to comment on that with any more definite voice, because it's a potentially difficult decision. And difficult decisions should be made with the fullest of information, the greatest of analysis, and the broadest of consultation. So my voice will be in favor of parks, and it will be to look to funding models that are appropriate when all facts and all considerations are put on the table. Thank you very much.
Len Laycock.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I'll keep it short because it does get repetitive at this point, doesn't it? Of course, I support wholeheartedly the concept of the park and the family-oriented park. But to be asked how it would be funded without knowing the scale and the scope, it's really impossible to answer that question tonight. But certainly, in spirit and feeling, absolutely I'm for it.
Amelia Hill.
I have to agree that basically it's been answered already, but it all relates back to what we were talking about before between consultation and cooperation between council and your community. So the reason it's so important to figure out how we're going to fund it by asking you how you wish to fund it is because we'd like to ask you what sort of park you'd like. Because again, we don't know what size and scale this park's going to be as we keep adding things to it. So it's important you get your opinion on whether you would like a walking trail around it, if you'd like activity centers within it, benches, things like that. I certainly support parks. I would love a new place to toss a rugby ball around, but I certainly stand with parks, and that's my opinion. Perfect. Thank you. Amelia Hill.